Hello guys, welcome to the concepts of medical. In today's video we're going to talk about terms related to body's movement. We have made many videos about terminology of anatomy and about terminology of medical. If you haven't watched this video, just go there to the I button and just watch these videos before watching this video. So this is also important to learn the different movements in our body according to anatomy. So what are the terms basically used for the movement in anatomy? So let's discuss these terms. So the first terms here we have is the flexion. So what is flexion? When two flexor surfaces are brought close to each other, it means when flexor surfaces. I have told about the flexors and extensor surfaces, all of these terms very briefly and with explanations in my previous video. So if you haven't watched this video, so please watch these videos before. So the flexor surface is actually, this is my flexor surface and this is my extensor surface. So when I'm trying to move this flexor surface and the flexor surface of my arm close to each other like this, so this moment is actually called flexion. So another definition for this flexion is inflection. There is decrease in angle. It means whenever there is a decrease in the joint between two bones, so it means that it is flexion. Let's suppose I am move my finger just like this between these two phalanges, so this is actually flexion because the angle here is decreasing. That's why it is flexion. So the flexions occur everywhere in our hand, in our legs, in our finger, everywhere. These flexion movement in our body, in our trunk, in our head. So when we just facing our face downward and just hang our head downward, so this movement is also called flexion. Lateral flexion, forward flexion, and extension. So a flexion is a moment is taken and occur everywhere, right? So you guys just memorize that whenever there is decrease in the angle between two bones and in the joint, so this is called flexion, right? The second term here we have is the extension. When extensor or dorsal surfaces are brought in as much approximation as possible, it means this is my dorsal surface, right? So whenever I am whenever I am taking my hands reverse from the flexion position, it means I am trying to close my extensor surface of my forearm and my arm close to each other as much as in approximation. I cannot close it as much as I am closing it in my flexion, but as an approximation. So this moment is actually called extension. It also means that the reverse moment of flexion is actually called extension. Here it says that in extension the angle is decreased. It means that here the angle is just decreased, but whenever I just reverse this moment, so here the angle is increase. So the increase of angle is actually occur in extension moment, right? So this was all about. I can also show you here in this book. So here this is whenever I am moving my this hand upward, and here the angle is just decreased, so this is called flexion. And when I am going back and reverse of flexion is actually called extension. Here the angle is just increased, right? So this is flexion and another is extension, right? So the third term here we have is the abduction. So what is abduction? Abduction is when limb is taken away from the body. Means whenever let's suppose this is my body trunk and this is my limb, my right limb. So whenever I am taking this limb away from my body, so this is called abduction. And another term here we have is the adduction. Adduction is actually when limb is brought close to the body, is actually called adduction. So whenever I am taking my limbs away from my body, this is abduction. But when I'm reverse this moment, so this is called adduction, right? I can show you here in this book. Here it says that whenever my limb, this is my right limb, whenever I am taking this limb away from my body, so this is called abduction. And when I'm bringing close to my body to the median plane, so this is called abduction, right? So the away from body is actually called ABD, abduction, and another movement is actually called adduction, right? So the fifth one term here we have is the circumduction. Circumduction is actually the combination of all these four moments, right? Flexion, extension, abduction, and adduction, right? Circumduction is actually, it is a moment of distal end of the part of the body and a circle, a combination of extension, abduction, flexion, and adduction is in a sequence is called circumduction. Circumduction is actually mostly occur when the bowler is doing ball. So this moment is actually called circumduction because all the flexion, extension, adduction, and abduction occur in that moment. Right here you can see in this picture whenever the bowler is doing bowling, so this moment is actually called circumduction because here the flexion, extension, adduction, and abduction, all these four moments is actually occur. So the combination of these four moments is collectively called circumduction. So the example of circumduction is actually the shoulder circumduction during the bowling, right? Oh, the sixth one term here we have is the medial rotation. When the arm rotates medially, bringing the flexed forearm across the chest, it means whenever this is my flexed forearm, right? When I bringing this arm close to my chest cavity, close to my chest region or my trunk, so this rotation of my shoulder joint is actually called medial rotations. Another term here we have is the lateral rotation. Lateral rotation, actually the reverse moment of medial rotation is actually called lateral rotation. When arm rotates laterally, taking the flexed forearm away from the body is actually called lateral rotation. You can see it here in this position, in this picture. In this picture we have is this is the flexion, the flexor part of my forearm is just moving close to my body, so this is called medial rotation. And when when I take away this the flexor surface of my forearm away from my body, so this is called lateral rotation, right? So this is medial rotation and this is lateral rotation of my shoulder joint, right? Here, the eighth one term here we have is the supination. When the palm facing forward or upward as in putting food in mouth. It means here this is my hand, right? So this is supine position. This is prone. So this is supination when I am moving my hand from prone position to supine position. So this moment is actually called supination, right? As we are moving, when we take food from plate to the mouth, so this moment is actually called supination. And pronation is actually when the palm face backward or downward, as in picking food with finger from plate, right? When we picking food from plate, so our palm is actually facing downward or backward, so this moment is actually called pronation, right? We can also describe as whenever we are in the in anatomical position. This is here you can see where we are whenever we are in anatomical position. So the position of our hand is actually the supine position, but when we rotate my hand like this, the palm is just facing backward, so this moment is actually called pronation. And when I take my hand back to the anatomical position and face my palm to the forward position, so this is called supination of my forearm, right? Here the another term here we have is apposition of thumb. So what is the apposition of thumb? It is when tip of thumb touches the tips of any other finger. It means that this is my thumb, right? When I this tip of my thumb is actually touching this tip or this tip or this fingertip, so all these moment is actually called what? Apposition of thumb. So all these moment is actually called apposition of thumb, right? Here another term here we have is circumduction of thumb. Circumduction of is actually here Again, circumduction I have explained it here before, that it is actually the collection of flexion, abduction, adduction, and extension, right? Moment of extension, abduction, flexion, and adduction is in a sequence is actually called circumduction. So how circumduction occur in our thumb? So this is circumduction, this is circumduction of our thumb, right? So this moment, because flexion occur, extension occur, lateral abduction and adduction occur, so this whole moment is actually called circumduction of our thumb, right? So another term here we have is the dorsiflexion of food. So these moments are actually occur in our foot. I cannot show you my foot, so I'll just give an example as my hand. So when the dorsum of foot is brought close to the front of leg and sole faces forward, so this is my dorsum of foot. Just take an example, right? And this is my sole of my foot, right? So when I just bring close this dorsum of my foot to the extensor, to the flexor surface of my leg, so this moment is actually called what? This moment is actually called dorsiflexion of my foot, right? And the opposition of this moment is actually called, because whenever I just dorsum of my foot bringing close, here we can see the dorsum of foot is brought close to the front of leg. So this is actually front of my leg, not my leg, but just as an example. I cannot show you my leg, but here just you take my hand as a leg. So this is actually front of my leg, and this is dorsum surface of my foot. So whenever I just close bringing close my dorsum surface of my leg to the front of leg, so this is actually called dorsiflexion, right? Another term here we have is the plantar flexion of foot. When the sole of foot is plantar aspect of foot faces backward. So this is my dorsiflexion, because the sole is facing forward and the dorsum is bringing close to the front of leg. So the opposition, the reverse moment of this moment of this moment is actually called plantar flexion of my foot, because when the sole of my foot is just facing backward, so this moment is actually called plantar flexion, right? Another term here we have is inversion of foot. This is also occur in inversion, and inversion is when medial border of foot is raised from the ground. Let's suppose this is my foot, both foot. Whenever I just raise my medial border, these two border is my medial border of my foot, and these are the lateral border of my foot, right? This is just as an example. This is actually my hand, obviously, but whenever I just raised my medial border of my foot just like this, so this moment is actually called inversion, right? And another is eversion of foot. When lateral border of foot is raised from the ground, when I raised my lateral border from the ground, so this moment is actually called eversion. This is inversion and this is eversion, right? I can show you here in this picture. Here, when the medial border of foot is just raised upward, so this is called inversion of the foot. And when the lateral border is just going upward, so this is called eversion of the foot. And abduction, here they can also explain it in the hand. This is actually the median line of our hand. So abduction is actually taking the body parts away from the median line or median plane. So whenever I just take my fingers away from median line just like this, so this is called abduction. And when I just bring in close it together, so this is called adduction. So this is abduction and this is adduction. So I explained it also here, and but also this is abduction and adduction also occur here. So this is abduction and this is adduction, right? Another term here we have is protraction. So this is very important term. Protraction is actually when lower jaw slides forward in its socket in the temporal bone of skull. When I just move my lower jaw a little bit forward in a moment, so this moment is actually called protractions, and its reverse movement is actually called retraction, when lower jaw slides backward in its socket in the temporal bone of skull. So the reverse motion of protraction is actually called retraction. You can see it in the picture here on the screen. The upper one is the protraction and the lower one is the retraction, right? So this was all about movements of our body. If you want these pictures and these handout, you can visit my Instagram and Facebook page and just download it from there, and the link is in the description, right?